Hello, I'm Jim Hanlon, and I'm going to build two concepts into our talk about poetry today. This talk and the previous lectures are to help you write a poem for Vita's Balance for Poetry for Balance, but more importantly, to put your thoughts and emotions about your vestibular journey on paper. I believe that the process of writing is far more important than the finished product. That the act of writing itself helps expiate some of our vestibular demons, gets things out into the open, and gives us emotional detachment from the often too heavy burden. Our previous session was focused on two concepts. First, the importance of metaphor in poetry. Through metaphor, we invite the listener into our world, not directly, but by issuing a concealed invitation within the metaphor. And if that metaphor rings true, the listener understands in a startling new way what we mean, what we felt, and what we know. That metaphor creates a community of understanding, and that is, after all, what we want. The second concept from the poem, If You Wish to Know Me, is the necessary two-way street of trust. The invitation is real. If you wish to know me, you must seek me. But it is also necessary for me to reciprocate and let you know me. I accept the obligation to tell you who I am, or from last week's poem, I am a bird, where I live, the clouds, and where my voice can be heard. It resounds over the earth. This metaphor of understanding and the community can be created through sharing poetry, and that is what the Vestibular Poetry Contest seeks to encourage. Today, I want to share several excerpts of poetry and talk about wisdom. Poetry is a small capsule with huge wisdom in it. Because metaphor compacts our thoughts and presents them to others, we're able to concentrate the wisdom of our experience, the wisdom of our inner world, and the wisdom gained through difficult circumstances. The first excerpt is from the 20th century poet Galway Kinnell from his book Mortal Acts, Mortal Words, and the poem is Goodbye. The poem is a meditation on the memories of his mother's presence and the length of his life from childhood to the present. The last stanza contains such brilliant and true wisdom that because our hearts know emptiness, we have learned that love is all. The four-line excerpt goes like this. Well, one day the streets all over the world will be empty. Already in heaven, listen, the golden cobblestones have fallen still. It is written in our hearts, the emptiness is all. That is how we have learned. The embrace is all. The stunning metaphor is this: the golden cobblestones have fallen still. There's certainly a religious diction to the metaphor, but it moves past any specific religion to the truth of our hearts. It is an observation about the persistent quietness of the voices of people no longer in our lives, those loved ones from the past. All we know is transitory, and the voices of the people we knew and loved are no longer audible. They are where the golden cobblestones have fallen silent. But, and this is the inner revelation of the poem, because we know emptiness is all, we are entitled to know that the embrace is all. This is to say, the love we have right now is really the totality of all of the love in our lives. It's a different way of saying what Shakespeare said in Sonnet 73, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. This wisdom is the wisdom of our bones, the very foundation of our lives, that this moment we must love because it is both the only moment we have and all of the moments we have rolled into now. The second poem is from Jane Kenyon's poem, How Like the Sound, from her book Collected Poems. Miss Kenyon captures in this poem how our wild journey is, how rapidly we swing between emotions in this instant, in this hour, in this day. And don't we know the truth of that? How one moment the room is fine, and the next moment we need a wall to lean against, or the floor to rest on. In this poem, Jane is looking at her husband and sees the instantaneous sounds of laughing and crying. Let me read the excerpt. How like the sound of laughing, weeping is. I wasn't sure until I saw your face, your eyes squeezed shut, and the big, hot tears spurting out. There's mastery of writing in that first line where she places the words laughing and weeping next to each other. The placement illustrates the meaning. And then through the technique of placing the verb in the next line, we linger on the laughing, weeping juxtaposition. And finally, we reach the verb, which is now stronger by what poets call enjambment, the delay of the meaning to the next line. In this case, the word is. How like the sound of laughing, weeping is. The metaphorical sense of laughing and weeping, not just crying, but weeping, is something we know all too well and invites us into the truth, to linger there, to wonder if there are other opposites in life that meet at the extremes. Think about it. How like standing, falling is. How like quietness, talking is. Pick opposites in your poem and put them together. Jam them into 4 lines of truth. Vestibular warriors know well about opposites from trying to live with them and explain the condition with the mere shells of understanding for words. The third poem is by May Sarton from her selected poems and is an excerpt from Evening Music. I chose this poem because she binds the poem together with musical assonance and consonants. That is, similar sounding vowels and similar sounding consonants. Instead of end rhyme, she works the power of similar sounds into the lines. Let me read it and then show how the language is music. We enter this evening as we enter a quartet, listening again for its particular note, the interval where all seems possible, order within time when action is suspended. The plain meaning of the words is clearly in that last line, that time is a way of ordering our lives, our evenings. But when we enter into music, action is suspended, and we have the space to just be. May Sarton suggests that to be present in music is to move out of time. And the irony, of course, is that time is what holds music together. But at its best, when we listen to a piece of music we love, we move out of time into a realm where past, present, and future, internal and external, simply flow together. Miss Sarton employs 2 techniques that you might try. The first is assonance. The first line highlights the sounds of the letter E. Enter, evening, we, and enter again. The sound E binds the line together horizontally without obvious rhyme words. The letter L holds the next two lines together. L, listening, particular, interval, possible. The sound of the letter not only binds the poem, but the L gives us an entrance into our thoughts, the internal space, not existing in the realm of time, where we listen to where all seems possible. The last example is the consonants of the letter W. Where, within, when. They are not rhyming words per se, but the similar sounds again contribute to the musicality of the meaning. When you are writing, roll around the sound of words to enhance your meaning. You don't have to deliberately try for assonance or consonants or even alliteration. Just trust your ear and go with the music of words. The grounding metaphor is the impossibility of entering a string quartet. But we can and do enter the music of the poem, of the concert, the music of our lives, take us away from the constraints of time. Listen for the particular notes of your life, the interval between things where possibility exists, and the delicious moment when time and action are suspended, and we just exist. Wang Wei was a Chinese poet who lived from 701 to 761 CE. He created and mastered the four-line poem, which is the requirement for our Vita Poetry Contest. He also mastered the use of words to capture place and mystery within nature. This is rich, fertile ground for writing your poems. Mystery rather than certainty, and the many aspects of nature are metaphors for human emotion. Let's read the poem, then look at the meaning. In mountain forests, I've lost myself completely. Identity's nothing but the role we play in public. So how do you know an ancient recluse master? Not by the old timer's form he somehow took on. The first line of the poem creates a place that is distant yet knowable. If you hike like I do, you have specific mountain forests pictured in your head. But that's not necessary because we can all conjure a mountain forest where we lose ourselves completely. And there, identity is nothing. Ironically, long-distance hikers get to choose or have given to them a trail name. When you backpack on the nation's trails, you don't do it under your given name. You hike under a pseudonym. My hiking name is Andante because I'm a violinist, and Andante is the Italian tempo word for slow walking tempo. That's my hiking speed, slow walking. But of course, the poem is deeper and more significant. Our identity is inextricably tied to our roles, and who we are at core is not only the roles we take on. It's more expansive, greater than our occupation, bigger than how others see us. The last line states that clearly for the master, he is not the form he took on. Try writing a poem about who you are that is separate from the roles you play, the roles other people assign to you. If you existed in your own mysterious mountain forest, what would your identity be? Go toward that and share it with us. As you define that for yourself, you may glimpse again the possibility of taking control of your life as it is, not as others define you. Walt Whitman was America's greatest poet, and his epic poem, Leaves of Grass, covers everything. It's as big as America, a poem as big as even the world. This four-line excerpt contains such a significant nugget of truth that we must look at it. No one else, says Whitman, can travel your road for you. You must travel it for yourself. Much is said in these four lines. There's a deep mystery in how we get to set out on the road we now travel. But this deep wisdom is secure. We must travel it ourselves. It's a simple truth. We all know well-meaning people who want to tell us what road we must travel. Push back in your poem against well-meaning people. Think about your road. Perhaps you've been on it since you were born, and it's time to identify the road, time to claim it as yours. Not the one you thought you might be on, but the road you are on. Here's Whitman's poem. Not I, not anyone else can travel the road for you. You must travel it for yourself. It is not far. It is within reach. Perhaps you've been on it since you were born and did not know. Our last quatrain is from the incredible poet Patricia Smith, who says in her poem, "Stop the presses. We need soft words for hard things. Silk brushing rock." That is the purpose of poetry, to speak the truth at a distance from the emotion of the moment, to find the contour of few words that communicate difficult things. Try finding those soft words. Try birthing truth in this way, as Miss Smith says, just once, and overcome what is difficult, but within reach. Craft for yourself words of healing, words of aspiration, words of a vestibular warrior, not for others, but for the poet who's... Shannon, I'm just screwing up like crazy today.
Hold on one sec. Do you want to, I can just cut this piece out. Or do you want to finish it later?
Can we just, and let me try finishing it from Patricia Smith's on the end of Walt Whitman. I gave a pause in there.
Sure.
Okay. My eyes are really jumping in my head, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Let me just try.
Okay.
Our last quatrain is from the incredible poet Patricia Smith, who says in her poem, "Stop the presses. We need soft words for hard things, like silk brushing rock." That is the purpose of poetry, to speak truth at a distance from the emotion of the moment, to find the contour of few words that communicate difficult things. Try finding those soft words. Try birthing truth in this way. As Miss Smith says, just once, and overcome what is difficult but within reach. Craft for yourself words of healing, words of aspiration, words of a vestibular warrior, not for others, but for the roles you play, not for the past that is gone, but for you right now. A reason, as the poet says, to turn the page. Write a poem to author a new story for yourself, not a final story, but a story that is sufficient for today. A story that has you standing vertical, a story that places you in your own mountain's forest, a story that finds its truth in quietness and music, a poem that jams opposites together, A poem that in a few words lets us know who you are and where you live. A poem that hopes for love and an embrace that is all. Miss Smith wrote this: "We need soft words for hard things. This silk brushing the inevitability of rock. Birth truth in this way just once. Craft the news and overcome all that you ever were. A reason to turn the page." After you've written your poem, let it sit for a day or two, then read it out loud and listen to the music and wisdom of the words. Revise it, move words around, then take a breath and send it into the address at the top of the screen. You get only 4 lines and 1 entry, but that doesn't stop you from becoming the poet of your moments. To sign the vivid air with your honor, as Stephen Spender said, "Born of the sun, they traveled a short while toward the sun and left the vivid air signed with their honor." Write a poem that rings true for you. Don't worry about writing the world's best poem, just your poem that captures in words the emotion and truth of your journey. As I finished writing this, a pileated woodpecker just landed on the black walnut tree outside my window. Spring is coming, and I need to go write a poem.